and welcome to another episode on the e-commerce back office. Today we have Dom here from StockTrim, and we're going to be talking about all things inventory forecasting and what that means for a business, when should they consider it, and how to implement that for them and at what stage. So Dom, without further ado, I will actually get you to kind of speak a little bit on your background, how you got into StockTrim and inventory forecasting, how you found the gap, all that good stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm a Kiwi, as you can tell. So we're based here in Auckland. My background's marketing. I've had an advertising company called Pumped for 18 and a half years, and it's a typical service business, which is great. But a while ago, I bought a client's business that was a toy importing and wholesaling business, and I didn't really understand product businesses very well, so I got in a lot of problems with around the stock, and I'll go into that a little bit later as to the pain points we solve for SMEs. But so I sort of got thinking about having a business like StockTrim when I went over to San Fran with my entrepreneurs group and found out about SaaS businesses. We're going a few years back, probably about 7 years ago now, and I just thought it was a really good business model. And I came back to New Zealand, kept going with my agency, and then I decided to step out of that. I've still got it, but I found Paul, my co-founder in StockTrim, and he was a guy who is a software developer who worked at ProMap and a number of other decent-sized software companies. And he'd seen that there was a problem in SMEs with the workflow around inventory forecasting and planning. And so I had this problem with this toy business that I had, and it cost me a lot of money. And he needed someone like me to help him expand out the offering he had with this software that he developed. And so we set up StockTrim around about 2017. I fully joined in 2018, and we've been scaling ever since. So
yeah, cool. Hey, so we're in good hands here today. We're all going to learn something. Especially around inventory forecasting. And I guess for me, first of all, right, you kind of hear about all these different inventory solutions like Dare, Unleashed, Locate. How does like inventory forecasting fit into that?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because a lot of people get confused. As soon as they hear the word inventory, they think inventory management. So I'll explain it to you in this way. So think of the accounting package, Xero or QuickBooks, as your hindsight. It tells you what's happened in your business. It's your financials. Think of inventory recording or inventory management, it's called, which is your Dare and your Unleashed and your Sin7. Think of them as insight. So they give you an idea of what stock you've got on hand and what's coming in and what's going out. And think of something like StockTrim as foresight. So we're sometimes called demand forecasting and sometimes called inventory planning, stock control, even replenishment planning. So we're given a lot of different names, and it's a little bit of a confusing category. So the category is still evolving a little bit, because a lot of people are still using spreadsheets to try to do what StockTrim does. So what we're doing is we're not competing with those guys that you just mentioned, and we need to be really clear with that. They're partners of ours. Yeah. We draw their data out of those systems and then project it out up to 2 years in advance and show a business exactly how to order and what to order in order to have a fully optimized inventory. Because what happens is that, well, you're probably aware of this. I mean, you're in the accounting area, that the number one of the biggest reasons for small business failure is around working capital, around financing. So they just run out of money, and they don't often realize where their money is sitting. And most of the time it's sitting on their shelves as overstocks. Yeah. It's a bit of a silent killer. The other killer. So we have 3 core outcomes for StockTrim, and one's we reduce overstocking. It's not just about buying less stock, it's about buying the right amounts of the right stock that you're going to sell at a certain time. So we match up supply with demand. So that's overstocking. That frees up your working capital to spend in other areas of your business at the time. Then there's the understocking one, the stock outs, and that we reduce that by 50% on average. Now, what understocking does is it really upsets your clients. A lot of e-commerce businesses, I know you guys have got mostly e-commerce related businesses, a lot of e-commerce businesses have got stuff up on their website that they just don't have in stock. So, and if they have to take that down off their website, they're losing potential sales. They may still be advertising certain products that they don't have. And so every time they have a customer that tries to buy something that they don't have, they're losing out on a sale and potentially seeing that person somewhere else. So that's about profit retention and just customer service, really. And then the third one is because I really love these quite clear outcomes, and because SME business owners understand clear outcomes, we don't have to go too highfalutin with it. The other one is time saving. So across our client base, 75% time saving. So StockTrim is an automation tool. It takes away that DIY with the spreadsheets, poring over spreadsheets, trying to create new formulas. First of all, there's a lot of errors in those spreadsheets, and it's not because Excel is bad, it's because usually there's human bias and mistakes in there, and they transfer through to actual real life situations. So we worked out that the average business spends about 10 hours a week on inventory planning, and we cut that by 75%. So I think I worked out that around about $20,000 per annum just in time efficiency.
Yeah,
so,
of course. How often, like how much kind of data does a business need to have before StockTrim can really start to predict or help plan inventory in the future? Is that something so it's not something businesses kind of implement straight away? Like I know there's so many moving parts with e-commerce. They might get their accounting and then they'll have their inventory. Like when do you kind of see businesses come to you?
Yeah, it's difficult if we have a complete startup. Some guys are really proactive when they go, I'm doing this new business, this e-commerce play, and I want something like StockTrim. And we go, where's your inventory? Well, I haven't started yet. So you can, if they haven't started, if they can produce forecasts against SKUs, we can load that as hypothetical data, right? Yeah. It is possible. It's not ideal. We generally require 3 months at least, at best a full year. Maximum we'll take is 2 years. We're not interested in anything past 2 years, right? But we have the ability to play with scenarios, and sometimes, and then what happens is the system starts learning. Once they start trading, the system takes over and starts adding in the real data in there and starts projecting off that. So it's got a bit of machine learning in there and relearns behaviors and changes in lead times, changes in SKU patterns and stuff like that. So it will learn the new behavior. It won't keep existing off the old data.
Cool. So this is like really good for like seasonal businesses as well. And like, does it kind of allow you for lead time for getting that inventory onto your shelves, especially businesses that need to put their products together? How does that kind of all work?
Yeah, so we have to work with lead times, variable lead times by supplier, by SKU. So, and we have seasonality in there, and it reads all that. Yeah, the lead times can be adjusted, let's say, and we get a lot of questions about this just thanks to COVID and a whole bunch of other stuff. Delayed materials. So we do have the ability, while something may projecting, oh, this normally comes in with a month lead time, but we find out from the factory that it's going to be 6 weeks. You can jump in and upload, change those lead times by supplier or by specific SKU. So you can override the system. So there's some flexibility in that. But yeah, lead times is a core part of the whole demand forecasting thing. So we have to get it right. So to take a step back, what we figured out with SMEs is we've got to be accurate, because if they lose trust in us, it's just over. I mean, they're a tough crowd, really, and because they really want value for money. So we have to be accurate, we have to be affordable, and the other critical thing is we have to be easy to use, because a lot of our customers, they're not inventory planners. They're not purchasing officers. They're often the owners of the business. They might have an admin. A lot of, I mean, probably I'd say about 30% of them have full-time inventory planners, and the rest are running it partly themselves plus an admin person. So we can't be too complicated with how the system works. And you've got to remember, we are digitally serving StockTrim internationally. So 70% of our client base is outside of New Zealand. So we have to be able to do this all very easily via the calls like this and a few emails and a few chats.
Yeah, for sure. I guess it's a thing with e-commerce businesses as well. They're all wearing so many different hats, right? And that's the beauty of all these kind of automation tools out there, is that it can help them and assist them in the different kind of department that they're working in for that day. When do you kind of see business, like I'm sure you've got some amazing case studies of businesses that have implemented StockTrim and then actually been able to really refine their inventory and their planning, but like when do you kind of see businesses kind of start to think about this, or do you think it is when the wheels start to fall off, or do you think yeah,
that's a really good question. That's a really good question, actually, because this is the problem, and this is where we've got an emerging market in front of us. Up until recently, businesses really thought they had to do it themselves. Only big businesses had forecasting as part of an ERP system. And so we're sort of bringing this technology to SMEs when they never had access to it before. So we're kind of educating the market that it's available. And when it's sort of like poor inventory controllers can be a bit of a hidden, it's like a bit of a cancer, and you don't really know that it's there until you start getting some symptoms. You should really be working on your lifestyle, to follow the analogy, and what you're eating and how you're taking care of yourself and your stress levels, to try to minimize the occurrence of something bad happening well before. So we're trying to encourage businesses to look into this before it's a problem, because when it is a problem, I mean, I had an example the other day, and I can't say who it is, but I was talking to a partner who was working with a company, and they were actually a liquid, and the tax department was after them, and they didn't realize, because they just kept buying more stock. And so if they had something like an inventory planning tool like StockTrim, they would have been very clear very quickly about where the dangers were in their inventory. And the second part of it is that we've got a client in the US he's not an inventory planner, he's more of a marketer, and he said it's great because they can identify which products they need to promote or discount quickly to get it out of their books before they age too much. So we have customers that are using it in different ways, right? But overstocks is definitely a silent thing that a lot of people think it's not a problem because we'll sell it eventually. But depending on what market you're in, your stock can age on you and it's worth nothing. I learned this when I got that toy business. I had slob stock there that I couldn't just about give it away, but I'd paid too much for it and it was aged. And if I had something like StockTrim, I would have just gone through that list of stuff just sequentially and just eliminated it out of my stock as fast as possible, because it was like a cancer, and it was holding up storage space. It was tying up my working capital. So we try to encourage SMEs to think about, get a bit more scientific with the planning. You know, we don't charge a lot for the subscription. And when I told you just before the $20,000 time saving per annum, I mean, we start at $99 a month for subscriptions, you know, so there's not really an excuse. But I think the biggest, toughest thing for SMEs to get their head around is that, here's another project I have to do, and it's another thing. And I know SME business owners have got 20 things each day to do, probably more, 50. I mean, I've got that many. And I think this is going to be another big project. But the average client takes less than 2 weeks to fully on board with us. Yeah,
right. And do you help people on board? So you walk them through it. Oh, yeah, that's great. I mean, it's an investment. Again, Jerry, who I spoke to recently, and she was saying, you know, you have to think of inventory like cash, and, you know, like, get serious about it. It's your money. And you can have these tools to actually manage it, but why not refine that and actually have the right amount on hand to sell, and to keep yourself going, because there's so many things you got to consider with an e-commerce business. And I know now, right, there's so many different add-ons you can have, and I guess it's about choosing which ones are right for you and what are an investment but are going to optimize your returns long run. But cool.
There's some really interesting stats. I mean, and this, when I mention these, some people just can't believe it, but I think from memory, around about a 4 million turnover, $5 million business will have around about $700,000 in overstock.
Wow.
On average. So that money, even if I'm half right with that, that's average across what we've seen in the data in the back end. So even if I'm half right with that, let's just call it 350. That is $350,000 that could be put towards more. I mean, you might spend that money on your inventory. I mean, we're not saying buy that much less. It's about when you buy in relation to when you're going to sell it. Because the tightest time between you buy it and sell it, obviously without running out of stock, and that's what StockTrim helps with. That's where the accuracy is. But if you can use that cash flow in the meantime on the right people or other systems, I mean, some of it hopefully will come towards StockTrim subscription. But I mean, it's just a better, cleaner, more efficient business, right? And a lot less hassle and a lot less aggro for a business owner. They just got to sit down, commit to getting that system, looking at something like StockTrim and then using it and then making it a part of their business.
Yeah, for sure. And where does it come in relation to, say, an inventory management? And I know some small businesses, right, they're still operating out of their garage. They're doing all of their they're doing all the shipping. Where, do you kind of recommend it's for businesses that do have an inventory management system in place?
So we started out only integrating with inventory, like the small business inventory management systems. The typical, there's the type 4, there's the Deer, and there's Trade Gecko, there's Unleashed and Sin7, and a lot of these are good Kiwi, Australasian companies. And then we realized that sometimes some smaller businesses don't want a full inventory management system. So we did integrations with QuickBooks Online and Xero. And Xero doesn't have a very in-depth inventory management system, but we have users who have it doesn't matter how complex inventory is. Some people just have a fast-moving inventory. So we've got a customer that's got 12 SKUs, for example, but they're fast-moving, and he supplies supermarkets. And if he doesn't have the stock, he's in trouble because the supermarket like him not fronting up with stock, right? So, so StockTrim was a great investment for him, and so we don't need to have a full inventory management system connected. We have to have a single source of inventory data, and it has to be accurate, because we read that data, and if it's not correct, StockTrim will show up all the inaccuracies in your data. So it's a good body check on what you're doing in your inventory recording system.
Oh, cool. That's great. And do you work with accountants or anything like that at the moment to kind of help?
We do. Accountants, and I know that you work mostly with accountants, and this is probably going to be watched mostly by accountants. We work with accountants that are more advisory, more interested in helping their clients get more efficient in their business. I know that's probably what most accountants strive to achieve. It's just about whether they have the bandwidth to delve into other things other than just their accounting systems, right? Yeah. So I do know some accountants do jump into that quite heavily, and some don't really have the manpower to do that. That's okay. If anybody's watching this and they think the customer could use it, happy for the referral, and we're very grateful for that. We are doing some basic outreach to accountants, but we do tend to look for ones that are more focused on accounting and advisory than just straight doing end of year stuff. So, but if you think of if it might, accountants are there to help their clients, right?
Yeah.
and be good, astute financially. And I think people think of inventory isn't so much about financing, it's about supply chain. Well, we've just talked about how critical it is for working capital, and working capital is very much an accounting and financial scenario that an accountant would be aware of if their customer is struggling with that.
Yeah, totally. I guess that's where it comes in. So StockTrim's not strictly e-commerce, are they? Is that right? No, yeah. But like, I mean, in this case, I feel like a lot of, say, the accounting partners at A2X that are very e-commerce focused, they kind of know the app stack that e-commerce businesses should be using to have that efficient, an efficient business. So that's always good for them to know about new inventory forecasting tool. And because obviously the better a business is going, it's better for everyone.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just critical. And a lot of these e-commerce guys are growing. I mean, there's some awesome, I mean, I'm watching them come through in our lead funnel, and it's quite exciting seeing these new niche e-commerce businesses. Some of them are growing out of, especially since the COVID and just, the nationalization of supply chains and stuff like that. It's quite interesting stuff going on, not just actually with e-commerce, but the corresponding businesses like niche manufacturing,
Yeah.
and they feed that e-commerce function. So a lot of your clients won't just be e-commerce operators; they'll have they'll be partially integrated, and that's what we're seeing. So they might actually be a manufacturer, but they've chosen to set up a web store and they're selling directly to the public as well as supplying wholesale as well. And we're seeing a lot of quite complex structures in small businesses already, and it'll be interesting to see how they expand. The good news is we can accommodate all of those businesses. I could draw some whole charts of some businesses on how they reach the market, and it's quite complex, but all we need to work with them is a single source of inventory data.
Yeah, that you can then use to predict. How do you handle outliers? Like, I don't know if I don't want to get too technical, but I'm like, obviously that's always going to happen because life is life, and like no one could have predicted COVID, right? I mean, well, there's apparently some people that did, but like, do you know what I mean? Like, don't know if I can say that. Anyway, moving on. But yeah, like, how do you kind of allow for outliers or things like that? That's so when there is that delay in shipping, or if all of a sudden, you go viral on TikTok and everyone wants your product, like.
Yeah, okay, viral on TikTok. So yeah, you can jump in. There's room in StockTrim in the dashboard to jump in and so forecast for adjusted lead times over and above what the system historically would tell you. There's ability to forecast for special or discount one-off events or add in one-off events. So for example, let's say last year you got smashed during the March lockdown. We can normalize that.
Right.
Or you have talked to your team and say, guys, we're going to do a buy one, get one free sale in October. Let's put in that we're going to sell 20,000 units of this SKU. If you put that in for October, the system will recalculate and move back and then tell you, and it'll adjust all your purchase orders based on the lead times, based on your suppliers. Even if you're manufacturing, you've got all these a bill of materials, all different ingredients going in different items, it'll all work backwards and start producing purchase orders for you. Because that's what StockTrim does. We do automated purchase orders, you see.
Oh, right. Yeah, this is actually so amazing, because you think about even just saying that buy one, get one free, right? That is so true. You need to align your inventory with your marketing strategy and everything, and it all kind of feeds in. I think because, we sell software, so it's kind of like there's unlimited software, but when you think of it from a product perspective, that's got to be so in tune with everything else that you're doing in the company. Yeah,
and it's also it's about preventing loss, right? Or nasty surprises is another way of describing it. So, some people do, and I've seen this happen, some guys are shooting from the hip, and they might say, oh yeah, we're going to do a buy one, get one free sale, but then they forget or they don't have no idea about how successful it's going to be, but StockTrim helps you to model this stuff out and see problems way before they happen. And another one is, let's say, you're 4 weeks, you're 5 weeks out, and you've got a lead time. you just found out your 4-week lead time that you thought you had has gone to 7 weeks, right? Of certain SKUs. If you put that into StockTrim, it will show that you're going to run out, but at least, and there's nothing you can do about it because that's the only supplier. Or you could find a local supplier because you could see it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
And it'll tell you that, and it'll tell you by how much you're going to be out. And if you're still getting that other stuff coming in and, in time, how many orders you'll be able to fulfill before you run out and stuff like that. So it prevents those. It's a customer service tool too, because you can then call your suppliers if you're a wholesaler and say, hey guys, we're going to be able to get this much to you, or the rest is going to come in here, or order here. And so it just creates additional conversations. I think one customer described it as.
Yeah.
They allowed us to have conversations around our inventory. So that's what they told us. So.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's so interesting. And I guess as well, a big focus of the e-commerce back office is to try and get people to understand, that there's all of these things that you need to consider that are going on behind the scenes. And it doesn't need to be difficult. Like, you can simplify it, can automate so much of this, but just need to kind of be aware of what tools are out there and what you can use. And I would say, I would go as far to say that, if you are serious about scaling your business or growing your business, you will need to have an inventory forecasting tool. Do you think we can speak in that much of absolutes? I'm going to say so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think our objective at StockTrim is to become the default for this kind of thing. And our biggest challenge is not about, we don't have a lot of competitors in this space, because going SME, going to small businesses or small medium-sized businesses with a tool that's only ever been available or understood at an enterprise level, it's more of an education exercise than it is a sales exercise.
Yeah.
Which is hard for me because I'm a marketer and a salesperson. So but we're trying to be a product-led business. So the whole idea is just to create awareness. So a lot of my marketing is around just stories about customers. Because once business owners realize that there's a tool that can sanity check their planning and forward purchasing, and it's so affordable and payable on a subscription, I think that they will see it as a no-brainer. It's just these guys sitting out there right now, poring over spreadsheets and probably making errors that are going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars, but they just don't know there's an alternative. So yeah,
for sure. No, that's a big thing about category creation, right? I feel like that was the same when A2X kind of came about. There wasn't anything that was doing the settlements, and they kind of, to start with, people are aware of the problem, but they weren't aware that there's a solution. So, cool. That's really exciting. Watch this space.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Are there any kind of one thing I was trying to do was actually talk about some massive facepalm moments where you were just kind of as your toy store that you kind of spoke about, that when you were oh gosh, I've really overstocked here, understocked, is there anything that kind of comes to mind, or just too many?
It was a 2-year disaster.
Right.
We had the business for 2 years, and shortly after I bought it, I realized I was in a level of, I didn't realize how much I was. I lost, I'm happy to tell you, and all your listeners, I lost $1.2 million over 24 months.
Wow.
The reason for this, and a lot of your listeners who are carrying stock will understand this, is that I was vendor financing the business. So I purchased a lot of stock at cost, which is a mistake in the first place. Because if I had stocked an inventory planning tool like StockTrim, I would have run the data probably in my due diligence, to be honest, and realized that I shouldn't. There would have been blood on the floor, literally, right up the dashboard, right? It would have just been, because we do graphs and it shows you everything.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have bought the business, but even if I'd got it after I'd bought it, I would have realized I would have been able to have a sequence of priorities in order to and also known what to buy, because I was paying for the old stock while having to buy new stock in order to satisfy to make sales, right? So it was just a massive cash flow issue. But even when we were buying new stock, I was buying it based on what we thought we should buy, which is just ridiculous. Yeah. But the weirdest thing is there's listeners of yours right now that will be doing the same thing, and it's going to go pear-shaped at some point. And I learned how to asset strip a business basically, and got out of it and sold the shell of it and as remaining stock I could, and licked my wounds and carried on. And here I am now, and I'm still doing.
Yeah, and now you're going to help other businesses avoid that same mistake. That's the best. Yeah, look, best outcome. Well, from a bad situation. I always like to try and finish these kind of chats off with just like a few what are like 3 things our listeners to this can go away and do right now? And even if you've got, 1 or 2 tips for them around inventory forecasting, like hopefully they understand of like the importance and that it's actually available to them in their kind of earlier days. And this isn't something that they need to wait till they're massive and selling multi-million dollars in revenue every year. But yeah, what would you, sorry, a long way to get that out. What would your couple of tips be for them?
I think it's just to think about the future, how you're going to scale into the future, and if your current system is sustainable. There's a big temptation to just make do and DIY. I think that mentality when you're dealing with something so important to your future of your business, it's the wrong way to save money. Yeah. So look at the systems. The other thing, really important thing is, and I've discovered this, is if you do have an inventory planner in your business, they're probably the one that created the system you're running at the moment, and they will have a natural aversion to change, and that's just typical of human beings. Bring them on the journey. It's not a threat. Unfortunately, StockTrim does show up any weaknesses in the current system, and so sometimes there's a bit of a WTF moment when they load up their data. Embrace it. It's a and look, the last tip is just to give it a go. Line it up, run something like StockTrim against your current system, and make us accountable. And we're happy to. Our software has to be accurate and robust in order for us to have a business. So we're very open to working with any customer to get them the result they need. So just allocate a few minutes to have a look at it.
Yeah, cool. And it's just stocktrim.com?
Yeah.
Yep, perfect. And they can find everything they need there. Does it start with a free trial? How does it work?
Yeah, we've got a 14-day free trial.
Cool.
And so we'll run alongside with you on that, and we put our effort in even before you even given us a cent to. We allow you to do a free upload as well.
Cool.
And that sometimes raises new questions, which we're happy to work with you on. But yeah, try it before you buy it, basically. And it's not particularly expensive anyway, and we hardly ever lose customers after they start using it. So that's a good sign, I suppose.
Yeah, that is a really good sign. They kind of see it, they see the benefits, and there you go, and they're away. Hey, well, thank you so much, Dom, for coming on and speaking to our audience about inventory forecasting. And I would encourage everyone to go and check out StockTrim, another great Kiwi company. Can I call you a Kiwi company?
Yes, we are. Definitely.
Yeah, we're good at software on the side of the world. So yeah, go and check it out.